This is Rebecca Fillmore, and I want to welcome you to Her Inspired Mind podcast. Each week, I will be helping you to strengthen your mind, give you life-changing tools, and help you to grow with intention. If you haven't yet, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. And while you're here, make sure that you leave a star rating and review so that this podcast gets shared all over the world. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Her Inspired Mind podcast. This is your host, Rebecca Fillmore. And wow, we've made it to the end of this year. And one of the things that I want to invite you to do is to reflect on this year and then look ahead to what's coming next. So as you reflect, I want you to just be honest, right? And look back with gratitude and also with grace. And when I talk about reflecting, I'm not telling you to dwell on what happened wrong or to beat yourself up or, to just live in regret. But reflection is just, allowing this year to show you some things. So it's not about judging yourself and dwelling on any mistakes or what went wrong, but it's about honoring what you went through, what God taught you, and allowing those lessons to guide you as you prepare to move forward into this next year. As you reflecting is not about dwelling on the past. It's about extracting the wisdom from the experiences that you've had. And I know for a lot of you, it's been a rough year. For myself, it was a rough year, right? But it's not about dwelling to, harper on what went wrong, but to just see, okay, what did I learn? What could I do better this coming year, right? Because the truth is that you showed up exactly with what you had, with what you knew, and where God met you at that time. And as I talk about reflecting, I want to share the Bible verse of Isaiah 43:18 through 19 that says, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing." So I want to invite you to honor what you survived. I want you to honor the things that you went through. I want you to honor what it is that you learned and also who you became because of all of it. So the first thing I want you to reflect on is the lessons that you learned this year and what they teach you. I know for me, one of the biggest things is because it was my word for the year was peace, is that I had to choose peace. Even when life was lifing, even when people were, acting in ways that were trying to get me out of character or my circumstances weren't what I wanted them to be, I had to choose peace, right? And it was something that was required of me in order for me to walk in what God had for me. And God's peace means that there's a prompting in your spirit that is meant to guide you in your decisions, right? And so one of the things that I would do on a daily is like, Lord, fill me up with your peace, fill me up with your joy, give me clarity, right? So I was very intentional about inviting peace and choosing peace regardless of what was going on in my life and regardless of how I felt. And one of the things I learned is that what didn't bring me peace was likely not aligned with what God had for me. So if it felt uneasy in my spirit or if it just felt wrong or off and disturbed my peace, I realized that those things, those people, those places were not what God had for me, right? And so as I chose more peace, I learned how to better protect my boundaries, right? Because protecting your peace, in a sense, requires you to protect your boundaries. And so by choosing peace, by protecting my boundaries, It protected my purpose, right? And I knew that every yes I gave had a cost. Whether I said yes to a lunch date or yes to an opportunity or yes to doing something that someone asked me to help them with, it came with a cost, right? It came with the cost of my time, the cost of my energy. It could have cost me my peace at times. But by setting good boundaries, not only with other people, but with myself, I was able to protect my peace. And I want you to realize also that setting boundaries are protection. They are protection of your energy, of your peace of mind, of your purpose. And it also allows you to walk more in obedience. It is not selfish. So if this year you struggled with setting those boundaries, again, be gracious with yourself. Don't condemn yourself. Don't beat yourself up thinking, well, I should have, had better boundaries or I should have done X, Y, Z. No, just what did you learn when in regards to, protecting your boundaries and setting those boundaries, not only with yourself, but with others. And with boundaries, I also learned that, boundaries aren't walls, they're fences, right? But also, in order to grow, I had to surrender, right? So I did have to have boundaries with myself and others, but then I also had to learn how to surrender more to God. Because sometimes when you are practicing protecting your peace and setting boundaries, you can sometimes go into the side of trying to be in control of everything, right? So it's a delicate balance, but when you try to be in control, do you run the risk of blocking blessings? You run the risk of blocking clarity and direction that God is trying to give you. And when you surrender, you create space for God to move. You don't have to be in control. You don't have to know it all, but you just have to be obedient enough so that God can come in and do what he does best, right? Which is make a way for us. He knows better. He knows what's best for us better than we know what's best for ourselves, right? And by doing this, you allow space to be in more alignment, right? Because what's in alignment is more important than moving quickly, is more important than what people think about you, is more important of how you look to others. Because if something is not in alignment, it's not going to work out. It's like a puzzle. If you try to fit a piece of a puzzle in a piece that it doesn't fit, it's not going to be in alignment and the picture is going to fall apart, right? If you try to move that puzzle. So I want you to just have this in mind as you reflect and you look moving forward, is that if you try to rush things, it's going to leave you more vulnerable to making mistakes and being in misalignment. By doing this, along with surrendering to God, you allow God to move, and God's timing brings long term results. And know that slow progress in the right direction brings results. So it's not about how fast you're moving. It's not about, how fast others want you to move or their expectations, but just know that as long as you're going in the right direction, even if it's slow, you're going to get where God wants you to get. All right. So these were, just a few things that I reflected on in this last year, a few lessons. Your lessons may be different, but hopefully they prompt something in you to just help you to think, right? Help you to think as you reflect on this last year. And I know some of us, again, had a rough year and there was some rough moments, but the beautiful thing is that we're all interconnected as human beings and we all have some shared experiences. So regardless of how this year went for you, I hope that, my reflections help your reflections as well. But I'm going to invite you now to take a moment to pause, breathe, and reflect. So get your journal or a piece of paper out and write down these questions and then take time to answer them for yourself. All right. So the first question is, what am I most grateful for this year? All right. What am I most grateful for this year? The second question is, what challenged me the most and what did it teach me? What challenged me the most and what did it teach me? Where did I feel most aligned? Where did I feel most aligned? Where did I ignore my intuition or God's prompting? Where did I ignore my intuition or God's prompting? And the last one is, what is one lesson I don't want to forget? What is one lesson that I don't want to forget? And as you write these answers to these questions, I don't want you to judge yourself. I don't want you to condemn yourself or be in regret, but just be honest with yourself, right? And without judgment, and allow yourself to reflect as you get these answers. And once you have answered these questions, I want you to begin to now look forward with clarity and with intention. And know that you don't have to map out the whole year. You don't need to know everything. You don't have to have everything in detail in a whole year calendar. I've seen one of those. It's like a big calendar, and people would put it on the wall and put in every weekend they had a day and put like, you don't have to do all that. All you need is clarity for what is the next faithful step that you're going to be taking. Again, in the last few episodes, we talked about, you living a life that's in alignment with the purpose that God has for your life, right? And so make sure that you have that at top of mind as you start to think about what are the first next steps you're going to take in this new year. And remembering that we're not going to be living in hustle, right? We're going to be living in alignment and flow and purpose. We're going to be choosing alignment over comparison or rush. And we're going to build from identity, our identity in Christ, and not from what others expect from us. So I want you to think about, who do you need to become this next year? But ask yourself, who do I need to become this next year? How can I be intentional about protecting my peace? What daily rituals will support the life that I desire to have? Right? And so as you think about this stuff, as you're going to be moving forward, then have this verse in mind as well, which is Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and he will make your path straight, right? So again, we co-create with God. You think about the purpose that God has revealed for your life. You think about what he has showed you that you need to work on. And then you think about your next steps, but also trusting God with your heart and your mind, and knowing that he's going to guide you in what the next steps should be, what you should be focusing on in this next year. So a good thing to do as you do that is to have a word that's going to anchor you for this next year. All right. So I want you to pray to God and ask God, like, what is the word that you want me to carry with me every day as I walk through this next year? For me, it was peace this year. And other years, it's been like discipline. Another year was faith. But, a few other words is courage, surrender, alignment, joy. Just allow God to reveal to you what your anchor word is going to be for this next year. And then I want you to think about, what is one thing you need to work on or focus on to strengthen in this next year? Is it your faith? Is it your health? Is it simplifying your business systems? Is it strengthening your relationship with your family members? Is it working on learning how to become a better leader? And then choose 3 non negotiable habits that you can do each day that are going to support both your word for this next year and the one thing that you really want to focus on. And as you go through this process, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed or overthink. Just allow the space, allow yourself the time. That's why I said if you can't do it right now as you're listening to this episode, make the time to like listen to this again. And again, as you reflect, don't condemn yourself. I don't want you to condemn yourself. I don't want you to start thinking about what you should have, could have done. No, because the truth is that you went through exactly what you had to go through. You did what you could with what you had in that moment. And you're not behind. You're not late. You're exactly where you're meant to be, where God can work with you. All right. So just keep those things in mind. Because as Philippians 1:6 says, he who began a good work in you will carry on to completion. God's not done with you. If he began the work in you, he's going to see to it that you complete the work that he called you to do. All right. So I hope that this episode was beneficial to you. I pray that it gives you the clarity that you need as you prepare to step into this next year. And, if this season has shown you that you want to move into the next year with more clarity, more peace, more alignment, I would love to support you. As you know, I do offer one-on-one coaching, and together, what we would work on is helping you to align your mindset, your time management, and your goals with God's purpose so that you can grow into what he's calling you into without burnout. And if you're an organization that would love to bring me in to help your members to live a more aligned life, a more peaceful life, a more time aligned life, I am now booking for lunch and learn sessions beginning in January 2026. So if you're interested in either, make sure that you send me an email at rebecca@rebeccafillmore.com. And I also invite you to please share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Share it on your social media, on your Instagram. Make sure that you tag me at Rebecca Fillmore and connect with me on LinkedIn. Also, please leave me a star rating and review because the more reviews this podcast gets, the more that it will be shared. If you have any feedback for this episode, please comment below and I look forward to reading those. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless. If you have any